So we're recording. Everybody, please know we're being recorded. Thank you for being online, those who have been and are still online. And then again, thank you for others who have jumped in and said, oh, sorry, can't be here, got other things I need to attend to. Completely understand. Welcome to everybody who might be watching this at a later point in time. If, again, we don't cover or answer your particular questions, please know you can always send me an email or a text to my mobile number, which you guys have all got, and I can talk to you one-on-one. We also do have the chance to put out a call and say, let's do another online session with people who can jump online at any time. So maybe for some people, they might go, if we could do a group session at 10 o'clock just to talk about this assessment or this topic or this stuff, absolutely, I'm 100% open and up for that, and I can send out an email and we can see who's around. So that's good. Now, a couple of things, and I guess I'm talking mainly in some ways to people who might be watching this recording later, but also as a bit of a summing up in a way of stuff we talked about before we started the recording, is wow. What a crazy week we've had, what a crazy fortnight we've had, and probably more the point, what crazy times we all know are coming up. And again, we almost forget about it, but it doesn't, it's good to mention from the beginning of this year with, the fires, which many people, possibly a number of in our group, are still recovering from, or their family is trying to recover from, plus, the floods that happen at different places as well, and now this current environment that we are all living in with the virus, and the impacts of shutdowns and everything. Look, there's no way you can really minimise it or understate the impact that it's having on us all. And if in no other way, the impact it's having on us in going, wow, if we don't know people who've been severely impacted by closures and stuff, we all are, myself included, and I'm one of the eldest in this group, we're all, young enough to think, I don't remember a time like this. I don't remember an experience like this. So that's all really true. And within our group and within the groups overall in this qualification, lots of people have had lots of questions about different things and are all dealing with lots of different situations. So I don't have any hard and fast definitive answers to give to a lot of you about a lot of your questions, but I do know this. One, TAFE New South Wales overall as an organisation, and closer to home, Sue Lockett as my boss, and of course me. In between those hierarchies, we've been talking about a range of stuff. Obviously, it's not such a big thing for us to move online because our course is already online, but that in no way minimises the impact of what's happening possibly in your own world and your own industry and your own job, and then broader with your families, friends, communities, and all that sort of stuff. So two practical things are that, one, fee help. It's been asked to me specifically if, so apparently somebody believes that you have to be employed to have fee help. I spoke today to Sue Lockett it's her understanding that fee help is not dependent on being currently employed, but we are investigating that because maybe we're wrong in that. But either way, both of us agree that we very strongly believe that the government, be it the New South Wales government or the federal government, will be working through these things, and they will be doing stuff to help, just like banks are doing with mortgages and stuff, defer fee help payments or to find a way of putting them on hold or freezing them or something. So Sue, and my commitment to you is that, one, we're aware of that potential thought or concern for people. We're following up with getting some practical, direct advice, but we are both very confident that both the government and also TAFE New South Wales will be bearing this current situation in mind and be doing stuff to make it go, it's okay. You can and should continue your studies, and financially those kind of impacts should be minimised or drawn out or deferred or done something. The other point, or two other points, one other point is extensions. So the rules about having an extension for an assessment are being much more relaxed and flexible. So we understand that today things can be fine, tomorrow, oh my gosh, everybody's home from school, and or my parents or grandparents have been diagnosed as positive. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but stuff happens where you just go, wow, I was on track, I thought things were fine, now something else has happened, maybe I've been retrenched or whatever, like I need to do something different, I need an extension for my assessment. TAFE New South Wales Higher Ed is completely and utterly over that, understands that, is supportive of you. So already I've done 2 extensions under that kind of stuff. So talk to me, keep in communication with me. If stuff happens, send me a quick email. Can't do this, I need an extension because of this, and I'll fast track that process and that'll all be fine. So that's good. And then the third thing is that just a couple of people have said, already I know I've been retrenched or I've been stood down. I'm wondering if I get through my coursework for this subject, these 2 subjects fast, can I get ahead of the ball for future subjects? So the answer to that is a short and small yes. Exactly how that's going to happen still needs a bit of work. Obviously, there's a financial implication about extra subjects and money and all that kind of stuff, but to be honest, that's to the side and we'll deal with that later. But I guess the key thing I want to say is that if you find yourself not able to go to work and do that work, and if you want to progress faster through the content of your subjects to be a bit further ahead when this all starts winding down and we start getting back to normal stuff, we are aware of that, and we are in agreement in principle that that should happen and happen easily, and we're working with and talking to upper management to put in place some ways that that can happen, you know, as smoothly and as supportively as possible. So 3 things are money under the government system, fee help, I'm sure that'll work out, don't worry about it. If you need an extension, don't worry about it, that'll be okay, we'll be able to sort it out. If you find yourself at home isolating and you want to progress through your course faster, don't worry about it, I'm sure we'll be able to make it work. I think they're the 3 key areas. So I'm going to stop talking in a second. I'm going to open it up to the people who are on the line. I'm mindful that we've been going for a bit, but I want to just spend time with this. If anyone wants to either share their story or ask a question, please feel free. The floor is yours. And yeah, Gina said, thanks, I'll need it. So I'm going to mute myself and open up the floor. Please, guys, feel free to talk, because anything you say might be relevant to other people who might be watching this later on.
I'm all good, Kath. I think you've covered off any concerns for anyone that's in that position. So, yeah, it is what it is. We have to just roll with the punches, I think. And it's good that, we can still continue to study or fast track it. So that's good.
Yeah, I agree. It's really good to know that option's there if it does come up. I was even thinking if everything went real quiet, that could be good. But it's just nice to know it all.
Well, that's good, guys. I'm pleased that seems to cover it all, and I'm really happy about that. And I guess just in closing of this thing, again, mainly for the people who might be watching this recording later, is, again, I can't emphasise enough how much we, when I say we, I mean me and Sue and TAFE New South Wales and the whole team are really mindful of and thinking of you guys. So having said that, if there's something else we could do which we haven't thought of, then gosh, guys, I'm completely open. Send me an email, go, have you thought that this could be a good idea? And if it's possible and of value, I'll take it up in a heartbeat. So I'm trying to preempt, we're trying to be responsive, but hey, if there's something else that comes up that you go, what we really need is this, let me know. And if at all possible, we'll do our best to make that happen. So, all right, well, unless someone wants to jump in, I'm going to get started into the topic so we can get this all happening, if that's okay with you guys. And given nobody's saying anything else, and I'm sharing. Wow, I did all of that and I was not even showing my screen. Sorry, but that's probably not a bad thing because I think we were just seeing the people who were talking, so that's a good thing. I am now sharing my screen, so hopefully with a bit of luck you guys can see our PowerPoint. And hopefully you saw me do 80%, which makes it bigger. Yep, can see. Fabulous, Jessie. Thanks for that feedback. It means I can go on. So, guys, here we are, week 6, and we're talking about communicating in the training environment. And to be honest, I think the last bit of time that we were just spending, it was communicating in real time in a real training environment about real stuff that really matters. So, boom. Not many slides, so this stuff is not so content heavy, in comparison to assessment stuff, which is great, perfect for tonight. And again, most of this stuff you guys will know. What's our agenda? Pretty much like normal. We're going to go through the stuff, relate to this, have a bit of Q&A at the end. We're going to be running a bit behind because we spent a bit of time, importantly, talking about how are we, what's happening in the world, how are we going to travel through this. Classic progress points, same as they've always been. I think that's a bit of a song or something. So there's nothing new there. Again, if you need any one-on-one stuff with any of this stuff, call me, text me, send me an email, we'll set it up. So, right. Our assessments coming up. Guys, you are all over this. You can see I've added in this, thanks, with a smiley face, because a number of you, maybe 3, I think, from memory, have already given me your AE2 questions, which is fabulous. So I'm in the process, and for the rest of this week, I'll be spending time on, after tomorrow. So from Thursday on, I'll be spending time doing lots of assessment marking, not just for you guys, but for the next 2 groups that I talk to tomorrow night as well. So it's brilliant. It's great. Again, you're ahead of the curve. Ahead of the curve, that's what we need to know. I'm ahead of the curve. The curve is flattening. So for those who have put it in, fabulous. I'll get it back to you. That's great. Anybody else, also please know you do have time. There's no rush. There's no pressure. There's no stress. There's a lot of time here. And the best thing is that this group is already, wow, so far down with your participation in forums. I think many of you, if not almost all of you, are 3, 4, 5 great referenced forums. So you're all over this. This is good. Everything's travelling really well as far as assessments go. And I've got to say, in the past, I've had times when I've had to have sessions like this, and I've had to say to a group, come on guys, like a bit, excuse me, I'm going to clap, but a bit like, everybody needs to get a bit of a wiggle on. People are falling behind. But yeah, as a group overall, people who are on the session tonight and people who are watching it later on, as a group overall, good on you. You all, I think, all of you are, being mindful about what's coming up. What do I need to do? How do I need to do it? You're doing great, great interactions with each other on the forum, encouraging each other, supporting each other, and fabulous reaching out to me going, can I just have a bit of help with this or a bit of an idea about that? Spend some time talking about this. Brilliant. You're the model of adult learners taking responsibility and autonomy for your own learning and just getting stuff done. As we are, we're all Australians. That's what we do. We just get stuff done. So good on you. So again, does anybody want or need to say anything about any of that, or they're all good?
I'm all good.
Brilliant. Thank you. So, it's a bit like that whole speak now or forever hold your peace kind of point of view. So excellent. So tonight's thing, I love this, communicating in the training environment. So it's all about communication, and the different things about communication, be it the process, the channel, the barriers, the key elements, the motivation, engagement. So again, being a bit mindful of the time, we're going to go through this stuff, relatively quickly, but mainly because as well, we know it, we're living it, we're doing it every day, because this is our world now, making sure our communication is great. Overall, what is the idea of a communication process? In some ways, it's really simple. It's about, I've got a message, I've got to encode it, I've got to decide how to send it, somebody's got to receive it, decode it, and understand it. Pretty simple, but as we all know, anybody who has tried to talk to, a partner, a workmate, a 3-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, particularly 14-year-old girls, you think, I am communicating this message really clearly. Obviously, something's going on. You're not receiving it, or you're not understanding it, or I'm not sending it properly. There's a problem. But ultimately, what we're looking for is some form of effective communication that leads to understanding. And then the one thing that's missing here is leads to understanding and then sends back some kind of a signal or behaviour change or something that goes, message has been received, decoded, understood, acted upon, and here is the evidence of that. maybe a bit too much to ask for 13, 14, 15-year-old girls, but I might be a bit biased there. I might be talking about my own experiences in the past. So, take that with a grain of salt. So overall, the idea of the communication process and channels, the basic thing about the process, the 5 questions is like, so who is talking? What are they talking about? In what kind of channel? How are they going to talk about it? Who are they going to talk to about it? And what do they want? What's the effect? What's the outcome? What's the result? And this whole, terminology or concept of communication channel, it just basically means there's a range of ways or a range of methods that can be used by, it says here, a designer, but the reality is used by anybody to present information, to share information to an individual or a group of people in order for them to understand, what am I saying? What information am I giving you? What stuff is being put out there? And again, so topical, so applicable. I think we've all seen examples of good, bad, indifferent, meant to be good, didn't quite be good. What are they doing kind of communication stuff from our various levels of government and possibly even our friends and colleagues and things on social media and stuff that we all look and go, that's just a terrible example of good communication. Or we go, well, that's an example of somebody who wants to try and do good, clear communication, but is doing it well. Or maybe we go, but is failing miserably for a range of reasons. But ultimately, the idea is that what you really want to be is the sender that sends that information out with clarity, that it's easy to understand, that it's consistent. Ding, ding, ding. Lots of people have said there's been a lot of non-consistent messages out, and you send it out in a logical and a format that's able to be interpreted. So I understand what you're saying, how you're saying it. I'm not getting distracted by pretty colours or flashing lights. I'm getting the message clear, simple, direct. And we can think about it in the big picture stuff of what's going on in our world at this time and space, but we can also think about it much more in a much smaller world, a much smaller, closer thing, when you see a parent trying to tell, again, a 2.5-year-old, we don't throw toys. So, they get down on the level, so they're eye to eye with the 2-year-old. They hold the 2-year-old's hand. They say, don't throw toys, which some people would say, that's not good to say don't, but go, we hold toys, we put toys down. That whole idea of basic good communication can be as broad and as high level and as society significant as what we're witnessing, but these concepts can also be as applicable right back home in our lounge rooms or toy rooms, for that matter, even when we're talking to our partners as 2 adults together, trying to be clear, I'm trying to say it in such a way you understand what I'm saying, a consistent message, and trying to be logical. I think you kind of get what I mean. Great graphic here of all the stuff that goes on when we're talking about communication, somebody who's trying to encode it, whether they use words or how they say it or the format or visuals and all that kind of stuff. They're trying to send it to somebody else who has to then decode it, understand what do those things mean. In the middle, it's all these different ways of sending it. Then there's feedback back going, what do you mean by that? That doesn't make sense. Somebody else said something different. What are you saying now? And I love these words at the background: noise, noise, noise. Another word for noise is barriers or misunderstandings. So when you look at this diagram, you think, wow, communication, it's complex. And you just have to be a human being who's, tried to live in the world. And we all know communication's complex. That's a given. That's the truth. What kind of barriers can work against a clear communication? Well, there's lots of them. I'm not going to go through each of these individually, but I'm sure that you look through them and you can think, yep, understand that idea. Not only got the language barriers, there can even be attitudinal barriers where you've got people with bad attitude. So you can have all the stuff that's perfectly there, but for whatever reason, they're just got a bad attitude. It's hard to break that down. Becomes more of a, psychological kind of discussion rather than a how do I present this information kind of discussion. But there's also this systematic barriers as well, which I think is something that's often overlooked. If you are working in a work environment or a work context or a learning environment, or if you're living in a society for that matter, where people don't have trust, if they don't believe what people are saying, there's some kind of systematic barrier there that even when the right people are saying the right message in the right way, people still go, yeah, but I don't believe you. So there's some kind of historical or systematic barrier happening there. And I think that maybe a number of us might have heard about or seen about or relate to that in the current environment and things. So how do we determine what's the best way to talk to people? What's the best channel? Well, look, there's lots and lots of different things to think about or play into. And in fact, in your learner guides, there's lots more information about this. And towards the end of the session, I'm going to talk a bit more about learner guides and a bit about the different versions. But the bottom line is that there's a whole pile of things to think about for yourself, be it a trainer doing training or a teacher doing teaching, but even as an instructional designer, in any kind of role that you play in the educational sector, even as a manager or a department head or some kind of upper management role, an auditor, somebody auditing somebody else's courses, this whole concept of doing the best kind of communication within the training or education sector, these questions are applicable no matter what your role is, no matter what you're doing. Who am I talking to? How do they normally obtain their information? How can I reach them? What's the best way of communicating with them? What's the complexity of my message? And this is difficult because sometimes if what you want to talk about is multi-layered, it's got nuances, it relates often to compliance, and there's complexity. I don't know how you can do that in a text message that's got, emojis and the letter 8 and stuff going, hey dude, how's comply, thumbs up. Like, sure, you're asking a question, how's your compliance going, but is that telling the information you need to tell them? So how much will it cost with the different ways of communicating? Sometimes it is a fact, notwithstanding the current situation with social distancing and all that stuff, but in normal circumstances, sometimes the best way to get a message across is to fly in 100 people from all around Australia to one room and have a face-to-face 4-day conference session. Absolutely. In normal circumstances, not the current environment, maybe that's the best thing, but oh my goodness, how much will that cost? Is the message you want to give them really worthy of that amount of money to pay for everybody to fly in, stay for 4 days, have that face-to-face stuff? Is there a better way of doing it? And of course, this key thing, what are you doing? Are you just telling them stuff, or do you want the communication to be interactive? And that's a really critical issue, because there's lots of ways to broadcast information, lots of ways to put out information. But if the communication's meant to be interactive, then you've got to factor in, I can tell you whatever, but you need to feed back to me. Everybody else needs to know what you're feeding back to me. How do we work through that? But ultimately, it comes back to this key thing, knowing your audience. Who is your target audience? Who are you talking to? What are their needs? How can I get the message I need to get across best for them? And of course, when you talk more narrowly in a way to an actual organisation, there factors in a few more formal channels as well. That idea of being downwards, in that here we are, we're the management, upper management of an organisation. We need to send a message down to our organisation for things they need to do, or whether it works in reverse. Here we are, the workers of the organisation. We need to send a message up to upper management. This is what needs to be done. Somehow change your policy, change your stuff, or horizontal across different groups, departments, solos, that stuff. And of course, there's also informal. And in fact, informal communication in an organisation is often more powerful than all of these put together, because it often doesn't matter what the upper management says, this is the message. It doesn't matter what the workers say, this is what I want to tell you. It often doesn't matter what the different departments go, oh, we're working together great. Yes, we're working together great. It's the informal stuff when people go, oh man, management doesn't have a clue. Management doesn't listen to me. Marketing doesn't listen to me. The informal communication can often support or totally derail the other kind of communication that happens via the other organisational channels. So different types of them, bit of a summary. Again, this is taken from your learner guide. You guys have got it. You can tell, wow, if I want to talk in print, all these ones. I like that digital is separate to print, and yet you look down here and most of the digital ones have got a form of print, like they just might not be on paper, but they're the equivalent of paper. So I suspect within the next 5 to 10 years, print and digital become merged into written text or some kind of heading like that. Of course, in person, I've got these ones, but these days too, in person doesn't always have to mean physically in person. Skype meetings, although this what we're doing now, some people would go, is it in person? Maybe, maybe not. But we have got the opportunity to interact with each other and things. And then, of course, these other channels, which is a bit more broader, the idea of advertising and outboard billboards and stuff like that. So I think this is a relatively fluid kind of differentiation of different things. And over time, we'll see a bit more blending or bleeding into, I guess, the other ways of going. Print doesn't have to be just this. There's stuff in the digital that equals print. In person, there's lots of different ways of being in person rather than being just physically in person. One of the ways I think severely underrated is the idea of visualizing solutions. And lots of this is becoming more and more acceptable, I guess, or more and more wanted, particularly with things like infographics, which we'll talk about in a minute, but from the very beginning, visualising communication in some ways is actually our original communication with drawings on caves and stuff. So when we first wanted to talk to each other, we drew what I'm thinking about so you would know it. Then we went into a form of symbols with hieroglyphics. But even today, sometimes, what do they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words? It often is. It's like you could try and describe what this car looks like, or you can show a computer rendered drawing, you know, or a plan of, well, this is an aeroplane, but a plan of a piece of equipment or a plan of a house. But in particular, this idea of storyboarding, when you're working in the digital space, planning out what are you going to, well, not even just digital space, but any kind of space, planning out what do I want to tell them. I can write it out in dot points, I can do it in flow charts and stuff, but storyboarding is a critical skill, I would say, that has become and is becoming more and more relevant for people to be able to go, what am I trying to present here? What story am I trying to tell? What information am I trying to give? And then first of all, plan it out in some form of a storyboard. So you get them together. So we motivate overall, we communicate overall besides sharing information, but to try and motivate and encourage each other. Best ways of doing that is be effective, ensure that we're addressing questions, make sure we're generating and fostering creative ideas, and that we're directing and guiding individuals and their own practices, and then providing that one-on-one coaching. Because everybody will have their own blocks at some stage in the process. So that's where they need a one-on-one connection to be able to go talk to me or type to me or send me an image, an emoji or something about how are you feeling? What can I do? How can I help? What works best for you to get to the next stage, to get over that barrier, whatever that barrier is, to even identify what is the barrier. And sometimes this can be as simple as it's too much. My brain is exploding. I'm paralysed. I'm paralysed by overlearning. And that's a very real and valid place to find yourself in. And sometimes you just need to take a breath and go, yep, there's a lot to learn. But you already have learnt so much. You already know so much. Some of that stuff to learn, we'll get to it when we get to it. But right now, take a breath, be relaxed. Know you've already come so far on your journey. Don't be disheartened. Don't be defeated. Don't give up yet. You've already done so much. You've already learnt so much. Sometimes that's just enough for people to reset themselves, to go, yeah, great. Let's go on to the next. So it's almost a perfect example of, oh, I agree with you, Karen. Today you're going through, having to wade through the government announcements. It's huge, isn't it? Like yeah, you're right. Yeah, it is tough times, Carrie. You're completely right. You wish you weren't an accountant. Wow, Karen, I'm not an accountant, but I can hear you and relate to you from the other side. We, like everybody else, like myself and my partner Russ, we're going, so, what are all these announcements? How do they mean? We both run our own businesses as well as my TAFE stuff. And yeah, we had a few emails from our accountant over the last 2 days, and even just reading his emails, and he's a great accountant. He's breaking it down, but we're just going, oh, my head is spinning. I think I need to read this 3 times to try and understand it. I can't even imagine, yours is too, I can't imagine what it's like to be the accountant who goes, okay, so you can have this if you've got this, but you can't have it if you've got that, but you can have it if you've got this. Your head must be spinning. Yeah, it is tough times. So there you go, a classic example of trying to be agile and give out the information, but sometimes too much information in too short a time is too hard. But other times it's like, well, you have to give it all to us because we all need to know how it affects us. So it's a classic example in some ways of time short, information big or wide or long. How do you condense that? How do you share that out? Okay, Karen, hear you. Too many different people delivering the information in too many different ways. Like, yeah, I think that we're finding or seeing that even in the health stuff is like going, if we can all say what is social distancing. I don't know if you remember last week, we were just laughing about if it's 1.5 metres or was it 4x2 squared, or was it 50 people inside a room or 100 inside a room, 500 outside a room, like. And now here we are hearing that Germany, for example, has gone 2 people in a car. Like, yeah, it's such a fluid, changing environment. You just need that consistency of message. And again, it kind of sums up this effective communications stuff we've been talking about. All this different aspects, concise, and this idea about the bigger picture, but how it fits locally to the overall outcome. So, and the tone, you know, if the tone's appropriate to the message that's being sent and stuff like that. So we're almost at the end of the slideshow. Oh, I love this picture. In a nutshell, this is where you get to, after all that other stuff, what is it? It's the right people getting the right information at the right time. And probably ... from the right people as well. But I think that's just such a cool and cute visual. And I guess it does hark back to, you know, childhood and an earlier time when, you know, we thought the craziest thing would be to speak into a can connected with a string that was somebody just around the corner and we could hear them, and know that our message got across, and that was the great thing. So, all right, I really want to get through this so we can wrap it up and then possibly stop the recording and have a bit of a chat. Forum discussions. Again, I want to emphasise in this group, I think many of you, if not almost all of you maybe, have done 4 or 5 posts on possibly both of the subjects. So you're getting really close to thinking, boom, for maximum marks, my posts are referenced and 5+ posts will give me maximum marks. And we've still got, you know, quite a few weeks to go. So I'm saying that because in light of everything else that's going on, I would encourage you to focus on your assessments. I think that's, you know, a critical thing. Who knows what the next week's or fortnight, month has in store for all of us. Let's focus on what's the highest priority or payout, potential payout. But if you like this forum, then that's great as well. Like, jump in it. If you've got a suggested technique or strategy you'd use to encourage positive and effective communication in your individual context, you know, you could think about that as your workplace. But hey, given this current environment, if you can think of a better way to have positive and effective communication, broadly speaking, then put up your suggested technique or strategy, and then discuss how would you measure, was that technique actually as successful as you thought it would be? Or, you know, could you have improved it? With referencing, we all know about how that works. So just something to think about. Boom. What's next? Well, what's next is next week we'll be back here again. We'll be thinking about understanding the adult learner, and we'll be looking at week 7 and 8. I just want to say I'm going to spend a bit of time looking at week 7 and 8 for both the adult learner and this communicate in the training environment. If it makes sense and if it's doable, I probably will combine the 2 units into one formal session so that the week after next we could potentially just have an open forum, come in, have a chat, a bit of a without this me talking at you kind of stuff, because we'll be getting into ready for the TAFE holidays. So I'll just flag that with you. That's what I'm thinking about. I'll let you know during the week if it happens. Keep on keeping on, guys. Keep on doing your best. So key thing is, boom, we've thought about what we should be doing. We talked a lot about content, which weirdly was so applicable to the current environment, about communication and the best way to communicate. We talked about what we're going to do next week, and da-da. Thank you again for your time, and I'm smiling as I'm reading Carrie saying, sounds good to me, Kath. So I'm assuming that is about her saying, let's get our theory stuff over and done with next week, and the week after that, let's have a an open forum chat. Jesse's agreeing. All right, guys, mate, that all sounds great. I'll take that on board and I'll do my best. I'm going to not quite stop presenting. I'm going to close that down. It's still being recorded. I'm going to open up the floor if anybody wants to say something for the recording. Once that's happened, I'll stop the recording and we'll stay online for a bit while the recording saves. So open to you guys. Does anyone say anything about the recording or for the recording? Boom. Well, I reckon that's done. That's all great. So to people watching this recording post tonight, can I say thank you? Thank you for tuning in. If there was anything that didn't make sense or you're a bit lost about, as always, please, I'm just a email or text away. Reach out to me, let me know, or for that matter, reach out to your colleagues, your classmates, put something up in the assessment forum, chitter-chat place on the assessment tab that's not accessible. You're never alone. Heaps of ways to connect with us. Thank you for watching the recording, and particularly thank you guys for being here tonight. That's great. I'm just about to stop it and stay on the line and we'll have a bit of a chat.